again, we gather in search of the truth, dark, and mystery. It's the Drunk Turkey Show.
Big development today in the investigation into the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. According to state and local officials and court documents, 28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger has been arrested. He was arrested and arraigned this morning in Pennsylvania.
We have new details on what Bryan Kohberger was doing right before his arrest. Police says a tactical team burst in to arrest the Idaho murder suspect. He was in pajamas and latest gloves, stuffing trash into Ziploc bags.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Philip J. Fry, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show. Your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
Just like every other podcast. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drunk Turkey Show. I'm Daniel. Big Blue is not going to be joining us tonight. He had to work, but I think he got some time off. Little Birdie told me he's actually was seen at a dinner party for himself. It is his birthday, so we gave him the night off. He's going to be celebrating out there. If you see him out there in the greater San Antonio area, go tell him hello and see if you get him to shotgun a beer tonight. I'm sure he'll love to do so. But with that being said, today we're going to be talking and going back in to the Bryan Kohberger case. We have a special guest. He's been in the chat. He's been on in true crime channels. His name's Jeff H. He's done a lot of work, video and audio type of cleanup. How's it going, Jeff? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Daniel. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate this. Hey, everybody. And happy birthday, Blue.
Yeah, Blue, wherever you are tonight out there, may you what do you call it? Have some fun, dude. Have some fun.
Yeah. Another day better.
100%. So Jeff, you've been following the case for some time. Did you get into it when it first happened, or is this something that, a couple months into it you got wind of it? I know you're not from the Idaho area, so how did it reach you?
Right. Yeah, I'm on the other coast. I remember it was not long after it had happened, because I can still remember, like, one of the first things was like oh, okay, it's not pronounced Moscow, it's Moscow. And and it didn't happen over in Russia. It's in the US. That was the first thing that happened. And but yeah, then I started following it with I don't know how you feel about talking about other YouTubers.
No, you just started following other YouTubers. It's all good.
Yeah, it's all other YouTubers. And actually what had happened was, me and my stepson are always joking about that. He's like, we love that expression. It's like you're about to make up a lie. It's like, hey, what had happened was, but no, I was noticing that in chats, everybody was talking about this case, and they were talking about stuff that to me I felt was very visual, and but it was all words, and I was like, this is driving me crazy, especially because when somebody would say, now, what was that? Basically something that the question would be answered once you saw the image. And so I found myself sending images to a lot of YouTubers and just trying to help out. And they started showing them. And what was interesting was that they, never said, well, hey, that premiered on my show, so now it's kind of my image. But after it showed, I was like, well, what do I do with it? I was like, well, I'll put it up on my YouTube channel. And before you know it, the YouTube channel just kind of became a collection of all these little things that we'd notice, we'd talk about, discuss, and they're still there, so they're still up there to check out some of the very first stuff. Somebody in the chat was saying, at the vigil, did they were curious about Jack D's hand. Was there any scars or anything like that you could notice? And so I did a little video where I kind of zoomed in on his hands as he walked across the stage. Didn't see anything, but it's kind of interesting because I'll still get comments that pop up, and I look and it's like, oh man, I forgot about that video was even there,
Yeah, and those videos are still good. I mean, you sent me one about the Elantra there, and you had the audio boosted, and I picked up something on it. I was like, hey, at a certain point there, whoever's driving this vehicle is turning the wheel stationary. And when you turn the wheel stationary, you leave tire particles on the pavement. And so I was like, you have a visual of the vehicle that you feel is the suspect. You have an approximation of location of where they turned the wheel. You know, if they can go back and if they tag that certain, tire mark and or collected any evidence that was left from that tire, that potentially could get batched back up to Bryan Kohberger. And if you have that, that puts him in the area, and it puts him in the area that night because it's captured on surveillance. So I think that would be huge piece of evidence. Well, I don't know if it's there or not. I hope it is. Because
we'll hope they're listening.
Yeah.
It might be a little too late if you go check it out now, I'm sure, but
well, I mean,
hope they did look at something like that.
I'm sure that it's there. I think they were seen collecting and photographing a lot of tire marks and tire compound from the pavement in that area that evening. So it's going to be there. Whether or not they thought of, hey, well, now we can see where that car actually did something. So there's less of a guess, right? So if you go into that area in the day in question, then the morning after when you took those pictures, and there's only one spot in that area that has a tire turn in that manner, then you can say with a fair amount of accuracy that more than likely is the same one. You know what I mean?
Right.
You can, if you can put that vehicle to Bryan Kohberger's, that puts his vehicle in the neighborhood down the street and the suspect vehicle in question, because that's the vehicle that's seen driving around multiple times.
Right. Well, they got that there's that photo of two officers investigating. I think it's kind of bluish. The light's bluish. I think they're somebody who was recently describing it said it looked like maybe they were using luminol or something, but it was on the corner of the smaller of the three Queen Road apartment buildings. So they're right in that area, not far from where you're talking about with it. So yeah, maybe they were checking that whole area, checking that out. And I know, the landlord there had emailed me, told me that he had turned that footage over the very next day, gave them access to his NVR recorder for like 30 days worth of material, I guess, was there. And I think he assumed that, or maybe I just assumed that surely they probably took it all. I mean, it's not like they're going to just take a couple files. If they got 30 days, they're going to, I'm sure, take it all. But so because it happened the very next day, I'm sure they were aware of the car sitting there for like 10 seconds. And then, hopefully notice what you noticed too. What do you hear? Like, you can hear the tires scraping on the pavement, but the car's not moving. Is that?
Yeah. You can see that he backs up, and then you can hear the tires turning and the scraping of the tire on the pavement. And then he begins to move, and as he begins to move, it's already turning. So there's no turning in motion with it. And at this point is when I think it's important, because at this point is where I think things get real. In fact, you know what? I was going to bring this up a little bit later, but we'll bring it up right now since we're discussing it. I think this is where things get real. You and I were discussing this, and I hadn't actually seen this. You told me about it. You said, hey, I asked you, I was like, hey, I know you've updated and enhanced the video of that night. I asked if you had done have you put them all at the same time, or if you had at least tracked, because I wanted to see if the last time around was significantly faster than the others. And I believe it was, but this is off of your YouTube channel. So this is off of Jeff H, guys. 3.56 subscribers. Make sure you guys go out there and sub. Let's see this. I don't think this is the one. Is this the one that you had sent me?
Actually, no. Yeah, that's the one with the 3 passes. There's one that's got all 5.
Okay. Let me see. I'll go pull that one up instead. But yeah, the interesting thing is that it what do you call it? It does speed up in the last time around.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah. I remember when we were talking about that, you were talking about it as if it's like a hunch, right? You had a hunch, and then we pulled it up and looked at it, and it's verified when you compare all 5. So yeah, kudos, good job on on you. You can trust your instincts on that.
Yeah, well, so the way I see here's what I think happened, right? I think that there's no surprise that after the 4 o'clock passing, something flipped, right? There's a switch that flipped, and I don't think there's a coincidence or a surprise there that at around that time there was a DoorDash order that was placed in and delivered, right? So my thought has always been, and especially since Xana's friends had come out and said something to the effect that it was a complete total Xana move for her to be ordering DoorDash at all hours of the night, that's what she did, that she's probably familiar with the difficulty that maybe some DoorDashers would have to find her place, given the fact that it was 1122 King Road. However, it was facing Queen Road.
Queen, yep.
Yeah, and it was actually like a house behind King. So I would assume that it would be confusing as well. And you can't choose your DoorDasher. You know what I'm saying? So I would assume you would leave some sort of indicator out there, something for that person to know that you're there. Now, the probable cause affidavit states that it was dropped off at approximately 4 o'clock, which means it could have been 3:55. It could have been 4:05. His passes, there is enough time for a person to go park, drop off the food, turn around, get back in, turn around and leave in between the times that he is out of there. Because I think one pass was at 3:57. Let me pull these up real quick. Yeah, 3:57. And then the next one's not until 4:05. And so, that's an 8-minute difference. How long did it take Bryan Kohberger allegedly to drive from the intersection of King and Queen Road to get all the way around the apartment complex and back? Was less than a minute, right? Isn't that accurate? So if he was out of there at 3:58 and he was out of the that section of the neighborhood at 3:58 and the DoorDasher got into that area around 4 or even like a whole minute later, there's a good possibility that whoever was operating this vehicle, all they saw was whatever that indicator was. Let's just say it's a light for the DoorDasher, not knowing that Xana ordered a DoorDash. How would he know, right? So he would just see the light on and then the light off. He probably made some sort of assumption that they went to sleep, not thinking that somebody's going to order a DoorDash at 4 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean? So
also too, I don't think, like around here, Uber Eats and DoorDash, I don't think have like a sign on top of the car. I mean, it's just, I get like a message on the app that shows me, well, at least Uber Eats, you get a picture of the driver, you get a picture of the car. I think that's just Uber Eats, so DoorDash might not do that. But so yeah, he might have, if he saw a car. I don't think it's not like Pizza Hut with the big, or Domino's, or whatever pizza place is near you that delivers. There's no big placard on the top of the car. So yeah, maybe he sees a car, but I like that theory that the house is set back so far from the road. It's set back from Queen Road, not King. That is confusing. So I heard a lot of people would also say that they thought that maybe it was the DoorDash car that was seen on Linda Lane, but I just don't see the DoorDash going that far back trying to find the house. I think, especially like what you're saying, if she left the light on. I know when I used to deliver Instacart, and when I would do it at night, I had a flashlight with me always. So I, instead of getting out of the car searching around, I'm looking out with my flashlight from the car. So
yeah, I mean, I never thought it was the DoorDasher. I mean, like, that's a dedicated DoorDasher to be driving around for 30 plus minutes in a circle.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's
suspicious. That's suspicious behavior. I mean, if I lived in a cul-de-sac dead end area and somebody's driving through my neighborhood 5 times within 30 minutes, I'm like, either you really can't find a parking space or something is up,
Yeah, I never thought that was the case. You also have to factor in the distance between where this camera is, where it's located, and the victim's house. There's an entire apartment complex in between. Like, if what would be the point of the DoorDasher driving into the apartment complex? There wasn't an apartment number associated with that DoorDash order. I don't think.
Right.
I'm not familiar with how they ordered things at the 1122 King Road residence, but
True.
from all indications, I didn't see anything that had A, or B or 1, 2, or any of those things. So, why would she go into the apartment complex? The address, or I don't know, the male or female or whatever. Why would they go into the apartment complex if the address was for a residence? It doesn't make any sense, and especially that.
Because if you're looking for a house number and you see houses, and then all of a sudden you see apartments in front of you, why go that way? And I would imagine too. I mean, like in deliveries that I had done, which wasn't for very long, but still, you could become kind of accustomed to the area, and you're like, oh yeah, I've been here before. I remember this place. So there's a chance. I like to quote Jim Carrey. You're saying there's a chance. There's a chance you've been there before.
Yeah, that's true. So my thought process was the last time around was going to be the fastest time. I've said it before. I think that something happened. I thought it was the DoorDash, probably whatever was the indicator for the DoorDasher of the location of the residence. That was off. I think at that point it was go time. And this is where you start to see, some erratic behavior, in my opinion, as far as the vehicles. Up until the point at 405, the vehicle just driven around the entire time, just passed by. At 405, it parks, it stays there for about 11 seconds, pulls back out, goes the opposite direction. Then, according to the probable cause affidavit, it attempts to park or do another 3-point turn in front of the house, fails to do so, goes and does another 3-point turn, comes back. And when we see it the final time around, my assumption was that it would be the fastest time because he knows what he's going to do. He's made his mind up. This is what's going to happen. And, has his mindset. And let's see how this works out. So obviously the 406 took a while. You had put on here, how long it was.
Yeah, and what I was measuring, it's from the very first frame where you see the headlight appear coming around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were to watch the video frame by frame, you'll see like it's the moment all the headlights appear coming around the corner on every one of them. So they're all synced to the same starting point. And then I kind of use that white pole there as the kind of the finish line to determine, and so, you see at 407, he's got a little more lead foot on that one.
Yeah.
And, I always kind of speculated that that's like, the adrenaline, the decision to do what you came to do, perhaps. So.
Yeah, exactly. My thoughts exactly on this. I was like, all right, so, it's not just suspicious that it's driving around, it's behavior and what we know of what had occurred prior to this. That is makes it suspicious. And then when you add in, let me pull up the next one. Something like this, where I believe you enhance, I'll turn the audio up on this one. This is when he goes and parks. And then comes back around and turns towards, he does that 3-point turn at 507.
Right. This is the one with the overlay of a 2015 Elantra.
Yeah. And so it zooms in on the vehicle pretty close. Now, this isn't the vehicle, guys. I want to preference this. This isn't the vehicle that identified the car as an Elantra. This is just a video that shows, the vehicle and its maneuvers, right? It's not to determine which car it is. In fact, I don't think I think Ann Taylor's brought up several different videos and their locations that police used to identify the vehicle, and it wasn't this one. So
well, actually, the still picture of the 2015 Elantra used. I think I just did a Google search for. I was looking for a PNG file, so where the car is already cut out for me, so I didn't have to spend time cutting it out. But when I lined that up, I mean, basically what I was doing, like the far point at the black side window,
yeah,
and then where it is at the front. So I was sizing it to try and get those 2 points to line up. And the exercise of doing something like this is it's not to verify, but it's also to debunk, because I mean, and I would have been fine with that. If it was obvious from doing this that this is not an Elantra, that's what it'd say on all these videos that I've got with this, this exercise. But it lines up like perfectly to me, at least. Definitely that window. It's unfortunate. I mean, you got other cars parked in front of it, but you really get a good view of the shape of that window. And when I've looked at cars side windows like that, the only ones that I see where the bottom edge kind of slowly, gradually slopes up in a nice smooth curve. I mean, Teslas do that, but they're also very tall, like they were made for basketball players. Very tall cars in the middle.
They also don't have engines.
Yeah, true. He could have been playing the engine sound on the stereo though, to try and throw everybody off.
Yeah, that's true. To me, it doesn't exclude it. So like you said, is there something on there that shows that it's a different shape? Is there something that shows that it can't be him or his vehicle? There's nothing there. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is his vehicle. It just says it cannot be excluded as his vehicle. So let's see. This is when he's sitting there for a minute. Reverse. Now, when he reverses right there, that taillight sure does look long. Right there, like the Elantra, and that headlight also sure does look long like an Elantra. Right? You can see the taillight over the fence.
Right.
And so as he reverses, that looks long, like on the side.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
See, now he stopped right here and listen. There he stopped, and then he turns the wheel and he goes.
Right.
Let me make sure I don't have this in super speed. All right. So he turns the wheel and he goes from there. That's they have him and his like it's not an exact location, obviously, because of the angle and it's looking down or whatever the case may be. However, they have an approximate location. If they can go find tire marks there, and if there's only one set right there from that wheel turning, it makes it pretty tough. You know what I mean?
Right. And I think it's the FBI analyst or this car specialist gets a lot of grief from a lot of people that for, I don't know if you want to say getting it wrong, but I mean, when you look at that it's kind of difficult to tell. If from my understanding, the way to figure out if it's 11 to 13 or 14 to 16 are the front and back bumpers at the lower corners, and kind of hard to see it on this. But if you see it on this, do you have to make some kind of an estimation, and then you see other videos that are clearer later, and then now you've got a different opinion. There's nothing wrong with that, right? When you learn more, then you know more, and you act accordingly. It seems,
Right. So, I mean, yeah, exactly. Like, to me, I think my biggest argument to those that say, "Oh, it was they said it was a 2013, it was a 2013," is would it have been different if they said it was a 2015? Would the car have morphed? Does the car change? You can't do that. Is it a 2015 or can it be a 2015 or can it not? Today, I don't care what they thought, November 15th, 2022 or December of 2023. I want to know today, can the defense pull up an expert and they say without a shadow of a doubt, because of something on the car, that is not a 2015? Now, I haven't seen one of those type of experts on their witness list. Now, obviously, we haven't seen all their witness lists. They claim it's pretty in depth, but I hadn't seen one yet. Now, do you think that what they thought in the past matters more than what it means now?
Right. Like, yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, as the investigation goes on, it seems like they're going to learn more and more.
Yeah.
And where they were off a little in the beginning. That's why part of me, I mean, I really think that the decision to waive the speedy trial was not a wise move. Better to get the trial going while they know less, not when they know more. And it seems to me that, you know, with that video, you know, we got the timestamps on the Linda Lane footage right there. Also, there's a video on my channel too where I compare the sound of the car horn that you can hear on the Banfield body cam, police officer's body cam, and with the horn, the same horn that you hear on the Linda Lane footage. That time, the clock is only off by less than 1 second. So I think we can trust the time unless we believe that, you know, the landlord of 1330 Linda Lane hooked up with the police officers and says, hey, we're going to shift the clock, you know, a little bit.
Right.
But again, even when I did that, that was partially to debunk. But then you find out it's like, okay, well, it tells the story, right? So I thought that was interesting. And that's not the only time it happens in the Linda Lane footage. I think there's another sound that is picked up by more than one camera mic. I can't remember what it was, but it might have been another car horn, you know, at some different point.
Yeah, it could have been. I know there's a lot of sounds that were picked up early and stuff like that. I know that there was voicemails and text messages left from Kaylee to her boyfriend or ex-boyfriend, Jack DeCore, that kind of say that they were obviously alive until that point at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, the time of death on the autopsy on everything points between 4 and 4:30. So, you know, it's I don't think there's a question as far as if this crime occurred at this time or not. I don't even think that the defense is arguing that. Their arguments have been that Bryan Kohberger wasn't the guy in that vehicle. That's not his car, right? So their argument isn't that the person that's in that car didn't commit the murders. It's that he's not in that car. And if they argue that, you know, that he's not in the car and that person didn't commit the murders, well, that still leaves it open for him, right? So he wants to put himself away from that vehicle. But yeah, you mentioned that you thought that, I mean, we were talking during the trial and I told you that I thought that it was odd about the speedy trial. I said, man, I think Kohberger really screwed this up. Not saying that if he would have gone with a speedy trial that he would have won. But I think that, you know, I think he would have had a higher chance of pulling something out, you know, with the type of question marks that he's been able to put out there, you know, you know, the DNA samples, right? I think that was one of the biggest ones that everybody was talking about. Oh, there's 3 DNA samples. And the last hearing, the prosecution mentioned that they have looked into DNA samples at the request, basically, of the defense. Now, which DNA samples were you know, they were talking about that were unidentified? Well, it was those. So if they were able to identify those and then clear them as suspects, then Ann Taylor really can't use that in trial now anymore. And I felt that she could have used the fact of the mystery that, hey, there's 3 unidentified DNA samples at that house. Go get that, right? I mean, that screams, you know, reasonable doubt. And then you had the possible, and I'm saying possible, mistakes by the cast team, because I'm no expert. I have no idea what any of that stuff. Well, I have a little bit of an idea, but I'm not an expert in how that works or any of those things.
Right.
But if he was able to bring in those type of questions and things like that during trial, I think that looks good for the defense. By doing it now in a hearing, pre-hearing, I think
you kind of feel like it's showing the cards to the prosecution a little early. Perhaps, is that what you mean? Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, they're hoping the prosecution make the case stronger. by
Yeah.
clearing any possible DNA suspects, which is something you'd want them to do, right? Everybody was arguing that's what they should do. Why don't the police go and do it? Why haven't they gone and checked the DNAs? They should do it. Even now they should do it. Well, apparently they did.
Didn't they
So
say something about those other DNAs were, what's the term they used? They weren't viable, or were they damaged or in some way or something? It didn't have enough, or
I'm not entirely sure. If some people speculated that it was a mixture, thus it couldn't be separated or something like that to do those type of tests. I asked the defense witness Gabriela Vargas about that. I was like, hey, is there something like, the DNA can be mixed with or any of those type of things that could prevent an IgG from being ran on a sample? And basically she stated that if you can collect the sample and it creates an STR profile, you can run the IgG. And so, yeah. Take that.
Yeah, I thought I heard somebody say too that like the fact that they were able to tell that it was male DNA.
Yeah,
does that reveal that something was, they were run at least somewhat to at least determine that.
Right. Yeah. So yes, I think it was Ann Taylor that said that they entered it into CODIS. And so if they would have entered into CODIS, it came back negative. So they know that they know it's not Bryan Kohberger's. I think people are assuming that they think it was male DNA because why would they test female DNA? However, at the time of the collection, there was no knowledge of the gender of the assailant. And so I don't think it would have mattered whether it was male or female. I think they would have collected it and turned it into CODIS. What do you think?
Right. Well, the reason I bring it up is I thought I heard somebody say that even if a sample is damaged, you can determine whether it's male or female, but maybe that's about all you can get out of it.
Gabriela Vargas said
that's true.
that. Yeah, Gabriela Vargas said that even if it's mixed, like a mixture of DNA samples, that it can be separated and still tested and entered into CODIS and things of that nature. So if the fact that it was entered into CODIS means that an STR profile had to have been created. And so if an STR profile was created, they could have done an IgG run up on that DNA samples. Now, the question that I had about those samples were more so with where they were and why they weren't described similar. So one of them was described very well. It was inside of a glove. The other ones were just kind of in the area where two of the bodies, where some of the deceased were. It's just in the area. It doesn't describe how far away from the bodies. Doesn't describe on what. It
was a little unclear, right? It wasn't quite specific. I read you read it one way, and it's like it's just somewhere in the house. And you read it, and I think it was like you add a comma in there at some point, and then it clarifies. And it's like, it's amazing what a comma can do, right?
Well, I mean, what's the objective of the defense? The objective of the defense is to create reasonable doubt and to create benefit for their client. So when they describe something, they're going to describe it as best as they can at the benefit of their client and leave out anything that they possibly can that isn't going to look good, right? So I think there's reasons why the prosecution or law enforcement chose the DNA on the sheet to be the primary target. Maybe perhaps the other two DNA samples were in common areas. What's more impactful to you, Jeff, if you found transfer DNA on a murder weapon or transfer DNA in a common area of a house?
Right. Yeah, I've often said, like, if it was on a coffee cup or the knife sheath, it's like, I really got to know who was drinking that coffee first. That's my biggest priority, right? I need the coffee. I'm joking, but you want that. The knife sheath is clearly the top priority. Right. I mean, now, do you think in the trial they're due, like, with OJ, they made him put the glove on? Do you think that they'll have BK handle the knife sheath snap just to see how he opens and closes it, to see if he touches the spot?
No, I don't think they'll make him do that. No, but I don't. Unless things are going very bad for him, I don't see him doing anything. I don't even see him testifying. Now, if things are going bad for him, he has no chance. Like, if he testifies, that should tell you something. If he testifies, that tells you that he's not very confident in his defense.
You don't think
or
there's a
in the
part of
trial
him that
at
took
that point.
the waive the speedy trial to draw this out because he's kind of enjoying this? No, wouldn't do that.
Nah, man, his life's on the line. He's probably scared, like
Yeah.
anybody would be. You know what I mean? And he's probably, his defense team's probably telling him like, hey, here it is. We don't have everything. We can go into trial and we can argue that we don't have everything, and because we don't have everything, we can make it look one way or another, or whatever the case may be. But the prosecution and the law enforcement also don't have everything together. So it is their obligation to prove you did something, not your obligation to prove that you're innocent. So at that point, the ball is in the defense's hand. They have all the power. And if they were to have gone to trial and done the speedy trial thing and had this stuff that they had today or the other day in the trial in their arsenal for that actual, or in that hearing the other day for the actual trial, I think that could have been impactful. Now,
Right.
What did you think about Cyray's testimony?
I've got to go and listen to it a little more closely because it I don't know if I ADHD or something, but man, it just went on so long. I was actually watching a little bit of some highlights of it today.
Mhm.
But I mean, he seems like a knowledgeable guy. I guess he wrote the software himself, right? This is, either that says he's very smart or he's, I don't know. Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, it seems like it's going to come down to experts versus experts.
Mhm.
And in the end, I guess it's going to be, what the jury decides, which expert seems more credible, and is now. He did say something about like he left the door open, or what did he say? He
Mhm.
reserved the right to, if he once they get more info, to
Right.
say, hey, yeah, this looks like I think actually the prosecution definitely has a case here. I found that interesting, but I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what is it like with Brett Payne is, I think he's probably getting some criticism for just saying, hey, you got to go down to the evidence office and just go, you can go get it over there. And although
Mhm.
it also sounded like too, they talked about, going together to
Mhm.
find the stuff that Ann's looking for specifically. But
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what he's obligated to do. I mean, the burden of proof is on the prosecution side, right? So
Yeah.
how much are they required to assist the defense, who is obviously their goal is to trash everything that law enforcement has done. I mean, if you watch any of the Chad Daybell trial, I mean, they're clearly, I mean, they go after anything just to, that whether the house had a second floor or not. They
Mhm.
made this an issue, and like to try and cause reasonable doubt. And it's like clearly the house had. I love what the police officer said though on the stand. Did you see that?
No,
He
I
he
didn't. I
he
haven't
is
got any of it.
he's aware that Chad Daybell's attorney now owns the property.
Oh,
And
wow.
so when he asked him about the second floor, I think the officer said, well, you should know you own the property now, don't you? It's like, ooh,
Nice.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's interesting. For me, when it came to both of those guys, we'll start off with Cyray. He said some interesting things, right? And I felt that he seemed a little bit uncomfortable being up there, um, talking for the defense. He even mentioned that this was his first time being a witness for the defense. And so
Right.
when he mentioned those things about reserving the right, and then also saying that they're missing certain things that could be detrimental to either the state, and it could also be detrimental to Bryan Kohberger as well, that he doesn't know. And that was part of his spew about that. Um, I went back and I listened to what his concerns were. And some of the concerns were the drive test and drive test data and the mapping, right? And the cast viz and how they use it. But when it comes to the test drive data, his complaint was that either they didn't record, delete, or were, just didn't do the Pullman to Moscow drive test, and they didn't do a drive test from inside of the house to the route that they thought he drove, because he even mentioned something to the effect that the house the phone might act differently inside the house than it would outside of the house because of its location. Now, he said that there was drive testing done from the neighborhood and around the house, but not the house itself. I don't think the prosecution ever said Bryan Kohberger's phone was in the house. I don't think they ever said that Bryan Kohberger's phone entered the house, or they accused him that his phone was in the house. Why would they need to do anything inside the house if they don't believe that the phone was in the house? And it's believed that his phone shut off in Pullman. So how are they going to be able to determine how the phone is going to react while moving from Pullman to Moscow if it wasn't on? How do you do those two things?
You think he slipped in revealing that desire to know how the phone would act in the house, because maybe he knows the phone was in the house?
I mean, if it was in the house, that'd be pretty bad for Bryan Kohberger, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it was in the neighborhood, because the last time, and this was the one thing that I caught on too, was that defense said that they had Ray. He was going to testify that Bryan Kohberger wasn't the white Elantra or white vehicle that passed by the Floyd cannabis shop. And that wasn't even brought up. Now, they brought up that more points and more charts or more evidence was given to him, and that he could verify certain things, and even said that they got 4 versions of locations or whatever the case may have been, and that he'd only checked November, and that November was accurate. And I think so that was those things. The other issue that he had was, he said that the calibration of the machine, he was concerned that the calibration of the machine, because they only got the previous calibration showing that the machine was working properly and not the one afterwards. Well, during his testimony, we find out that machine was calibrated in October of 2022. So just a month or a couple of weeks before the incident, and it came back cleared. So I understand you want to see the back end part of it, but the closest one to the incident would probably be the most accurate calibration reading. I mean, if it was turned in every 6 months, let's just say, do you think it would be more accurate 6 months later than it would be 2 weeks earlier?
Right.
You get what I'm saying? And so those were his concerns. And lastly, he was talking about the cast viz and putting things in. He himself said that the AT&T CDRs, the cast data, whatever the R stood for, I can't remember. The cell data, I don't remember the R. Well, anyways, that those things are very accurate when used in a default setting. And that's what Detective Maury testified to, that he put the CDRs, the text file, into the program through CastViz on the default setting, and that the only thing he changed was that he put it in Pacific Standard Time because it was not in the right time zone.
Right.
So, I mean,
the call detail record, is that what that?
There you go, call detail record. That's what the R stood for. So
don't credit me. That's Google.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I just don't feel like their arguments there are very strong when it comes to that, because if, we also have to listen to Nick Balance. Nick Balance is the agent who did this. Now, in
FBI agent, right?
Yeah. Now, Ray said that he wasn't an expert. He's never been an expert in Idaho. Nick Balance has, and he just was in the Chad Daybell case, and his work was used to put that guy. I think they would not only found him guilty, but they did the DP on him, right?
Right.
So, he is an expert. He has testified as recently as last year in Idaho on some major cases on the death penalty case. So I'd be interested to see, him come up there and say, answer these questions as to why or how some of the things were done. The other thing that they said that was exculpatory was the fact that there was some cameras, and this is not with Ray's testimony, but that there were cameras that were missing, or camera footage. And then at the end, she kind of says that she even knows where they're at. She just doesn't want to go find them. But Um, she thinks that is exculpatory that around Moscow, the exit of Moscow heading down I-95, that there are no videos of Bryan Kohberger, vehicle or anything going down that direction. But that's not the only direction you can travel to get to 95 by Genesee, where his phone turns back on. And in that area, there's no cameras. Do you think it's exculpatory what she's saying?
So you're saying traveling? Yeah, I'm seeing like 195 goes south, but is that from like over
I'll pull it
WSU
up.
area or?
No. I'm talking about in Moscow. So
coming out of Moscow.
Yeah. I'll pull it up. No biggie. So
let me see. Like, I see 95 is like a main way to go, but what could you go out?
Right.
Well, if you went out Highway 8, you'd have to go way all the way out to. That's
right.
Quite a ways away.
Let me open it real quick. Let me see if I can find it.
And the Elantra is not chitty bang bang, right? I mean, it's got no flying capabilities or.
No.
Okay, so that's
none
out.
whatsoever.
That's right out.
Yeah. So Ann Taylor says that there's no videos of him traveling this direction. Mundy's machine shop is located right here. Right. So this is the area in which they're referring to that there is no cameras that capture the white car traveling south. And so there's nothing here, but yet there's a different route to get to where the phone turns on, and it's through here. You know, if you end up, instead of turning towards 95, you make a right turn towards Pullman, and you can actually get all the way towards Pullman, just like the detective stated. However, there's another road you can turn down to, and then it kind of cuts you back into Idaho, back onto I-95, and you get out of any cameras that were there. Now, I went through every single one of, this entire road trip. And one of the things that the prosecution or the defense is saying is that there's no videos of any other routes of him leaving. Well, if he took this route, he would not be on camera. And that's if this camera is working until he gets into Unionton, Washington. So there would be nothing on I-95 that puts him there. So although, yes, there is no footage of his vehicle traveling through that area, it doesn't appear that there's any footage at all. And I think that's what Payne had said, that they found no video footage. And then Ann Taylor asked, so you don't have video of the white car? He's like, no, there's no video footage. There's no video of the white car. And this is the first time, and this is even if they're cameras, I think they are, but this is the first time I found cameras on this road. And it wasn't until you get to Unionton, Washington. And, at this point, because of where it's at, he claims that he was south and southwest of Moscow and Washington, even all the way to the Wildlife Park. I mean, if he's in camera here, you can't prove that he was ever on 95. You know what I'm saying? So that was my.
You think that for the jury, they'll, because they could. Seems like they could create an animation that just shows like side by side, the defense's with a vehicle they suspect he traveled, and the other side is what the prosecution thinks, put it up against an actual clock to see, what the time it would take, or where they propose it would be at what time on an actual clock, and just see which one makes the most sense. I know it wouldn't account for like, stopping, pulling over, driving slow here and fast over there. So, yeah. I mean, I imagine the best stuff is, the cell phone data, DNA. More of that stuff. Yeah.
So like, there's nothing out here. Like, there's nothing. This is all you see. All you see.
Now, has Ted Bundy ever said why he chose this area? It'd be interesting if it's documented that he said he chose this area because there's no cameras. It's just so isolated, and then would make you wonder, somebody coming up behind Ted Bundy, possibly inspired somewhat by Ted Bundy, would they see that and say, can't do this in Pennsylvania, but Idaho could be done, you know.
What was her name? Joyce LePage, right? That's the alleged first victim of Ted Bundy. She was found in Wildlife Park, about 10 miles south west of Pullman, so in the area where Bryan Kohberger claims he was at during the time of the murders, or at least the night of the murders, which I find weird, man. Like, and the other thing is too, so I was talking this out with one of our former guest staff, and she was like, why do you brought up the question, like, why bring up like why park unless there was maybe something supposed to be there, maybe he traveled there before. At first I just thought, LePage, that was, where her body was found, Bundy was in the area, maybe he's playing, some sort of, maybe he's paying some sort of homage to him. And then she brought up an interesting thing. She's like, what if the thought was to, just kidnap one of the victims from the house and take him out there and commit the crime out there? It would still create a huge controversy and everything else, right? Because people were asleep, yada yada, and then it just kind of unfoiled. Kaylee was in bed with Maddie, if that was one of them was the targets, or whatever the case may have been. And I was like, that would have been crazy if that would have been the case, if he would have taken her out to the Wildlife Park. Maybe he had something planned out there, and that's why he, they could find something there of him being there at one point. So I don't know. I said that's a pretty crazy possible theory, but who knows?
Yes, interesting theory. I never thought of a theory where the desire was to take one of them with him out of the house. Plenty theories of things happening outside the house, bringing them into the house, out there, but I don't know. I just don't. I don't see that. One of the main things that seems to stick in my mind the most, it's like forefront, is just seeing that car go past. What was the last time? 407, right? 407 and a half. 407 and a half. It looks like the car is going past there. It's going faster than all the rest of the passes, heading towards the back of the house. And then the other two items of interest to me, maybe three, is that Xana, I believe, has posted a TikTok comment on a friend's TikTok post for 3:45. She posts the word queen, and then at 4:12 on another friend's TikTok, she posts the comment, "Never forget the foundation in the bathtub," which, from my understanding and from a person who told me about this, was that was referring to when they were kids, and I guess maybe sleepover, spilled mom's foundation makeup in the tub, heck of a mess. Never forget that, kind of like, good times. Remember when we were kids? And which to me, if that's all legit and true, I mean, that makes it difficult to imagine somebody coming along and taking her phone after she's been unalived, and I'm going to comment on something so that it looks like she's still with us, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and I have a a still of that, that comment, but I didn't want to ever dox the person that, I think some people have figured it out, but it seems to me like they know that person who Xana apparently put the TikTok post on. They could talk to her, verify, what is this referring to? You are good friends with Xana. Okay, the foundation in the bathtub goes back to childhood. Anyway, long story short, so that's 412. So 407, he's rounding past the Lindeling camera. 412, she's making her last. It's kind of her last sign of life on TikTok. 421:01, I believe I hear a trunk close. And then 18 seconds later, 421:19, you hear the car speeding off. And we don't have the benefit, unfortunately, of the light bulb camera at 1112 to join it up to see. We hear a car speeding off from the Lindeling camera. It's hard to tell. I mean, could be in that direction, could be in that direction. I'm assuming it's the car that we just saw at 407 go by. Right. Sounds like he lost control a little bit. possibly left the skid marks that they were looking at in front of the house. One thing interesting about this. So anyway, those are the 3 times that stick out to me. It's like a white car speeding off less than 10 minutes after Xana's last sign of life. I can totally understand why the law enforcement thought, we got to talk to this car. There's a, the occupant of this car or occupants. We definitely need to find out what's up with that. And combined with what the additional stuff that they were able to see, man, I wish we had the 1112 light bulb camera so we could see. That would answer so many questions. What kind of car it is, license plate on the front or not. Could you catch a glimpse of him through the window at all?
Well, I know that video exists. I've seen still shots of the 1112 King Road. Yeah, it's a much clearer video. I think there's another video at 702, another camera that captures the attempted park and the turnaround, or the attempted park or turnaround right in front of the house before the vehicle does the 3-point turn. But
do you think that's a camera at I know Swamp Rose and 12 gauge were doing some good stuff on that with that it's 712. I get it mixed up. That's technically, so is that a 712 Queen Road or King?
I think so.
Directly across from the house. Yeah, for me, the jury's still out on that camera because I really want to see a better visual that says that's definitely a camera. I mean, it looks like there's maybe something there, but I see like a drain spout that's curved and could it be a shadow? I was even looking at another YouTuber's channel where, she was out there live, boots on the ground, and she's just about to show, as she's walking, she's just about to show that spot. And then she swings the camera around to the house. And it's like, oh, come on. Just missed it.
Yeah, that happened quite a bit, man, with this case. Trying to look at things when people were out there checking things out. But, a lot of question has also been, and we brought it up, like the why and stuff. And, before we get into that, let me get into some of these super chats. I'm going to get into this one right here. Extreme Blonde says, do you think he did dry runs previous nights before he figured out this night was the time? It's possible. There's no way of telling, because I would assume that if he was going to, let's just say he went out and attempted to do this other nights, but let's just say the door was locked or there was something that prevented it from happening, he probably would have had his phone off during those times as well. So it would be odd, like, let's just say if he had his phone off and then all of a sudden, like we have, while they're going through it on one of the 12 times, the phone just turned on at a weird random time at that house. That would tell me that if his phone turned off at his apartment complex, like on October 10th, right? His phone turns off at the apartment complex, turns back on right outside or in the neighborhood of the victim's residence. What that tells me is that he attempted to do it, something flawed him, and he knows he's not going to do it, and he's taken off. You know what I mean? So I think that would be huge evidence. I think he definitely planned out the drive. I mean, you don't drive around like that without GPS and stuff and knowing where you're going without having been traveled that route before, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, when I think about like just the notion of I like to drive around at night alone. Now maybe it's because I've watched that movie Raising Arizona with Nicolas Cage. He's got kind of an addiction for robbing convenience stores, and when he's doing better, he says, but he's doing better, but he's kind of struggling. He says, I even found myself driving past convenience stores that weren't on the way home. Is this the kind of thing possibly that, I wondered if this isn't the only house he considered doing something like this in, and that he was like to drive around to check, and maybe he's got possibilities depending on what it looks like that particular night, which would explain, it's like, maybe, you're driving around at one speed, but then that final pass at 407, you're driving around a lot faster because it's like, okay, yes, it's this house, it's tonight, it's now, it's go time. Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, he did have ID cards with him. That was brought up, a subject brought up, right? That when they arrested him, he had cards inside of a glove, inside of a box.
Right.
There was speculation that he had set up some cameras and was watching one of his fellow classmates, was stalking, those type of things, which is like a little like a great transition into what we're going to be talking about next, which is kind of remind us of some of the things that we know about him and his past and stuff like that that we can go into. But real quick, Steelers fan comes in month 13th, loving the channel since day one, 100%. Mikey comes in with 2 gifted Drunk Turkey Show memberships. Make sure you have your gifts turned on if you want to get those. And make sure if you want to join, hit the join button. Would appreciate that. So talking first about a little bit about Bryan Kohberger and his past, I'm truly, I know a lot of people don't like to believe it. I'm not biased. And when I don't want to say I get something wrong, but when I do get something wrong, I'll fix it. I'm not necessarily saying I got this wrong, but I've been talking about Bryan Kohberger's arrest in 2014 with his phone. Now, I've been given some information about the arrest, that it was drug related and there was some other nefarious things surrounding it. Now, I haven't disclosed what any of those things were because I wasn't able to prove those things, right? But this is an inside edition. And so I do want to clear the air on what it was that Bryan Kohberger was arrested for in 2014. He apparently had stole his sister's phone and sold it for $200 at a kiosk for drugs. And so that's what Inside Edition has come forward and said that that's what that was about. And it was expunged. He went to rehab. I think there was actually comments of him talking with some of his classmates where he's like, I'm in rehab or whatever the case may be. It may have been something to do with this, but the charges and everything was dropped because he completed his rehab. But this is something that was going on, you know, a little bit about Bryan Kohberger. He did have a drug addiction. I think that's been something that has been well documented, I guess, or told about. What are your thoughts on this charge? What are your thoughts on the fact that he may have been addicted to drugs in his past? Do you see any of those things as being a sign of what he's alleged to have committed now?
Well, it's interesting you say like he finished rehab, but I think, yeah, you might finish a rehab program, but I think most people, alcoholics included, will, you know, I was just talking to my friend today. He's like, his AA meetings are a regular part of his life and keep him, you know, on track because, you know, life isn't always smooth sailing. You know, you have speed bumps along the way and you got to be able to make sure you don't relapse and go back. So I'd be curious to know what kind of situation he had set up for himself, because it's kind of a scary proposition to think if you have issues with that still, I think, you know, once you have them, it's a lot of people will always have them for the rest of their lives. They just got to have a system to deal with it. But leaving your home in Pennsylvania, coming all the way across the country like that, and if you don't have something in place, you know, I don't know if it's kind of thing where you're either going to relapse into the substance that you were using, or is it that you resist going towards that substance, but you deal with it in some other way? Some, you know, maybe is it possible there's a violent side that came out, and this was, you know, connected with that. It's just, you know, lashing out or something.
Maybe. I mean, there was a guy that said that he knew Kohberger during the time, and I think it was in that article. I'll see if I can go pinpoint exactly where it was at. But that Kohberger had told him, I'm clean, and had actively bleeding from his arm from marks. And he had told that one lady that he ended up going and getting a ride from to go buy heroin, you know, something similar to. Now, that wasn't the only thing, right? There was some other things that were going on in his life. This is Tanya Camilla Beers. Previously, she served as an administrator at a vocational high school that Kohberger attended. Her duties included mental health services and student discipline. Kohberger attended the vocational program at Pleasant Valley High School District in Eastern Pennsylvania during the sophomore and junior years of high school. Speaking with the Idaho Massacre podcast, she described an incident in which several female students lodged complaints against him, ultimately leading to his removal from the school's vocational law enforcement program. Now, in other interviews, she mentions things like, I can't say exactly, but sometimes there's actions that occur, and that's what would give people to get out of certain vocational classes. She goes on to say a situation occurred where a complaint was made and the teacher reported it to me and said an investigation needed to be conducted. So somebody was extremely concerned with whatever behavior he was exhibiting at the time. Camila Beers explained other students were interviewed. Bryan was interviewed, and there comes a time when decisions have to be made, whether it's the decision the student wants or not. So obviously it ended up in a decision that was not favorable for Bryan Kohberger. She continued that he was removed from the law enforcement program and transitioned into an HVAC program. And then at the end of 11th grade, when he decided not to return as a senior. So this says here he decided not to return as a senior. I've read in another article that he finished his senior year online. And that I think that also attributed to some of his addiction, because he ended up finishing a little bit early. And I think that's what the story I was reading was. He had finished early and he wanted to go, hang out or whatnot. And that's when he had active marks bleeding. But Camila Beers says something weird. She says she would not elaborate on what Kohberger had been accused of, but did note what had removed him from the program, when I look back now, makes sense. So whatever it was disturbing enough to cause an investigation, for a teacher to want an investigation to be completed. And at least there's some sort of dots that she can connect back to Kohberger's actions. What do you think about this article here from Newsweek referencing Bryan Kohberger?
Yep. Sorry, I lost my light. Almost got it back here.
Okay,
I could have sworn that battery was going to last like the whole thing.
No, it's okay.
How many hours have we gone? Is it been like 6 hours or something?
No, we're in an hour. We're in an hour.
There we go. I plugged it into power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of. I assume these things. These people are going to be on the witness stand. They're going to talk about their experience with Bryan, what they witnessed, what they saw. I know a lot of people kind of discount, like, even the IDs you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
And just trying to figure out what is true, what is not true. But I know I can say this. I think it was H was his drug of choice, if I understand right.
Mm-hmm.
That's the drug that my uncle had his final battle with before he took his life.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I understand from his twin brother that I've talked to, because I was younger back then, I was high school age, but his twin brother had told me that my uncle had basically every friend that he had, he'd pretty much kind of like either borrowed money, didn't pay him back, treated them poorly. He just basically ran through all his friends, and and then it ended. Even to this day, I'm not even 100% positive he took his own life and wasn't, taken out by somebody. But I know it's a hard one. It's a hard one to kick, and a lot of people don't survive it. Drummer that I used to play with, he was, he had a little case of what do you call it, methadone? Is that what they would have to take?
Mm-hmm.
And he was have to constantly going to meetings, getting his methadone checked out. They basically, they've got to regulate that. They got to check him out, make sure he's used. I think because he he's a nice guy. I think he let somebody borrow some, and then it kind of messed him up, and he tried to get it to get back on schedule, and they're like, you can't do that, So if that was the drug not of choice, but the drug that he ended up struggling with, I mean, it seems like it comes with a lot of stuff that can really turn you into like not the person that you are, at least especially in my uncle's case, because my uncle's a great guy, but to hear descriptions of him just being, hated by people that used to be his friends because of the way he was acting, it's just hard.
Yeah, that it is hard, man. And there's multiple victims of like drugs and drug abuse and stuff like that. It's not just the person, it's the families, the friends, the everybody that knew that person and loved that person who's also going through heartache and heartbreak, who suffered through that. So yeah, man, sorry for your loss, bud.
Yeah,
Uh,
thank you. Appreciate that.
no problem. Now, Bryan Kohberger, his like you mentioned, his drug of choice was heroin. There was a lot of what is it, like some speculation going on that he had a girlfriend at one point, Ashley Fugel, and she's somebody who passed away. She OD'd on heroin. Yeah, and we'll read this. This is from Bryan Kohberger had a girlfriend who was Ashley Fugel. It says, once upon a time, way before we knew the address of 1112 King Road or 1122 King Road, Bryan Kohberger was just another teenage boy. Let's see. Most accounts say that he was bullied and girls picked on him, but at least one girl found him tolerable. Her name was Ashley Fugel, and she and Bryan had gone through high school together. And we don't know much about the nature of the relationship, other than it was said that they dated. Ashley herself can't be reached for comment because she's passed away back in 2018 now of an alleged heroin overdose. I think this is interesting because I was reading another article where I think it's Casey Farntz or something like that. I can't pronounce her last name. The one that came out that was his friend that was drove him around. He had heroin on him or whatever. She brought up a picture of a ceremony that she went to in 2018, and she was in that picture. Bryan Kohberger's there, and she said in that conversation that she had with him there that he had said he had gotten clean, he was going criminal justice class, this, that, and a third. He was a little bit standoffish, and but that overall that he had done away with heroin. He said there's not because I guess when people would bring it up, he said don't bring it up. There's not a force on earth that would make me touch it again, or whatever the case may be. 2018 is the same year that Ashley had a heroin overdose. So I'm not sure if those two, it sounds like there's a possibility that those two things correlate. The other buddy of Bryan Kohberger, who was also into heroin with him, also died of an accidental overdose a couple of years later as well. Were you aware of that one?
No, I wasn't even aware of this one.
This one gets interesting. So Ashley Fugel had an Instagram page, and aside from one picture, we can't really see that she had any affiliation with Kohberger whatsoever. One picture we do see has a guy in a group of shot of friends who look a little like Kohberger, and if he had more weight on him. The person in the photo looks mildly inebriated, but does resemble Kohberger to a great deal. As for the rest of the people in the photo, we don't know who they are exactly. It does say in another photo that they had another friend pass away, but doesn't say of what. It is speculated that a friend may have been involved in drugs too. No confirmation. One thing that we do have confirmation, however, is that Fugel and Kohberger dated and subsequently broke up. Fugel came out as a lesbian. We know there's no such thing as being turned gay, but one has to wonder, since Bryan's relationship with women is so continuous at times, if Ashley didn't feel so unsafe around him that she thought it would be better that she swear off the opposite gender altogether. That's a lot of speculation. I mean, that's a lot of speculation. Right. You know what I mean? Like I said, I'm not biased. I can call out when something's like, yeah, I mean, I get it, what he's accused of or whatever, but I don't know. It's a lot of speculation. It says here, that being said, her death in 2018 actually did probe a police investigation into Kohberger. So the police actually looked into him, as far as her death is concerned. Now, if he wasn't involved with her anymore, if he wasn't doing the heroin or he wasn't doing the drugs, he'd been clean for some time now, changed his life, wasn't involved with those people. Well, why would he become a probe or be in the probe of the investigation? So,
right.
Ultimately, it was determined that an accidental overdose, but that sort of thing begs the question: was Bryan Kohberger any part in Ashley Fugel's death? People have speculated that because both he and Fugel used drugs, that he wasn't actually her boyfriend, but rather her drug friend, the guy that she used with. Considering we have no social media evidence of their relationship, or if we did, it has been long been deleted by now. This could be a valid theory. Maybe perhaps they did have some sort of bad exit or whatever, and she deleted everything. Apparently, Fugel was brought up on drug charges, but died before she could attend a court hearing and was found in a random house on Lindsay Lane. Doesn't that sound
Lindsay
familiar?
Lane, for real? Wow.
Yeah. And if you haven't seen Ashley Fugel, this is her. Does she look a little bit familiar? Wrong way. Now, a lot of people think that
maybe Xana or well, you were thinking Maddie?
No, this looks a lot like Xana to me.
Yeah, I would think Xana.
We had actually one of our viewers and guests, Nina, who's been on the show before. She has a YouTube channel. She's the one that pointed this out to me. And when she pointed this out to me, I was like, wow. You know, my biggest thing was I felt that this kill or whoever committed these kills or murders was a thrill. You know, there's audio from 50 feet away that don't, sound alarms of somebody losing their mind with rage or any of those things. It's very quiet, very stealth-like, very clean, so to speak. Not in the essence that it was clean, but the fact that whoever committed this crime didn't leave any DNA behind or any of those things outside of the sheath, right? But not on the bodies, because if there was DNA on the bodies or under the fingernails, that's the DNA they would have used instead of the DNA on the sheath. So we can connect those dots and say that the only DNA that's probably that was Bryan Kohberger's in that house at the time of the probable cause affidavit, because they could have found some sense. But at the time of the probable cause affidavit was the only DNA that was on the sheath, right?
Does that make you stop and think too? Now, am I correct in saying that in the Pennsylvania trash, they couldn't find any of his DNA? They found his dad's DNA.
Correct.
And I imagine others' DNA, but is that true to say that his DNA was not in that trash? Yeah. Which I assume is when he was arrested, they found him putting trash in Ziploc bags. I'm assuming that was isolating his DNA or potential in keeping it away from the trash. I mean, the fact that there's none under the victims. I mean, it just seems like the same, could you connect the dots that it's the same person operating? It's their method of operation. Right. Wasn't there something too about him being in a supermarket with
gloves and an Albertson? Yeah.
I don't know if it was maybe it was Albertsons. I just remembered being a supermarket because I've always pictured it like I picture my own supermarket and think how strange that would look to be. I don't know.
Yeah, and this is Nina Kelly. She's the one that pointed me into this direction and showed me this. This is people think that there's some conspiracies or coincidences here. This one's pretty big, in my opinion. Random house on Lindsay Lane. The fact that Xana also worked at the Mad Greek, right? It was Xana and it was Kaylee that worked there, I believe. No, Xana and Maddie that worked there. My mistake. Right, they had, when you look at vegan restaurants, that's number one that pops out. Now, the folks that worked there don't remember Bryan Kohberger. At least that's what they said on their Twitter post for the Mad Greek, that he wasn't in there. But he may have gone, you know what I mean, or attempted to go, seen Xana and saw the resemblance. And this is all allegedly. This is my speculation on this. Let me put up the little banner real quick before anybody gets crazy. He could have gone, seen her, seen the Lindsay Lane or Linda Lane address nearby. I don't know if he was on some sort of, if he was still consuming narcotics. I think that could have played a role into his decision into this house. One thing that I have pointed out is, since Bryan Kohberger has gone to jail, his diet has stayed the same. He's still a vegan. He's still being given vegan food. His workout regimen is probably similar. Remember, the defense said that he had stopped doing night runs for some time, and when his drives had extended, so he'd been driving around, not really walking or hiking or things of that nature. And so, since he's gone to jail, he looks like he's put on a few pounds. His face isn't as sunk in. He looks healthier. It looks like his color is back. He doesn't look so flush. I'm not
thinking maybe he's no longer vegan, or maybe I know a couple people have given up the vegan.
No, I don't think he's on narcotics in jail, and he may have been on some outside.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah. Can't get to him in there.
yeah, let's try to factor in. Let's just say Bryan Kohberger allegedly, theory, if he committed this crime was committed at 4 o'clock in the morning, and he was seen around at 2. Now, I don't know, maybe he took a nap that day, but if he hadn't, and he woke up, 9, given the benefit of doubt, at noon, right? Let's just say he slept in that day, woke up at noon. Well, then he would have stayed up all night till 4 in the morning, committed a quadruple homicide with a knife, right? I mean, that takes some effort to do. And then drives around for an hour and a half, goes home, is only there for a little bit, and then drives back to Moscow, goes back home, is only there for a little bit again, and then drives down to Clarkston, Washington. And then on his way back home, stops for a few hours in the area where his phone was off the night before. He turns his phone off again in that area, and then he gets home at around 8 something that night. Now, maybe 5-hour shots can keep you going that long after doing all that, but I'm skeptical.
So he turned the phone off a second time in the area
Yeah.
where he turned it off the night before?
Yeah, near
What do you think
Johnson.
that's about?
Well, my assumption is I don't think he had enough time to go and dispose of the evidence between him leaving Moscow, the victim's residence, and his phone being pinged. I think he had enough time to go hide it, maybe change, but not dispose of it properly. So I think that the next day he probably went and relived the crime scene with the items that he had there, I don't know if he took anything or not, but if he did, there's probably that there, probably the knife, any type of tools that he used to plan this crime. If he's as intelligent as people say he is, he probably shouldn't or wouldn't have put anything on any of his personal devices, things of that nature, especially knowing, I think he had like cloud-based forensics or something like that in his background. So he would know not to do those type of things and would have probably some kind of burner phones or burner devices that had his planning, had those type of things, maybe pictures of stalking incidences. Maybe he took some pictures with a burner device. Probably went back, relived what he could, and then disposed of it. I mean, that's if he's as smart as people say he is. He probably would have went back and disposed of it properly.
Didn't I read that he also he had a shovel, and what I'm wondering, and I'm only, I guess, thinking of this because of the Chad Daybell trial, where his, the blood or DNA from one of the victims was found on Chad Daybell's tools in his tool shed. I just wonder if there's any possibility of, no, I mean, I don't know if I know Virginia has, I've heard people talk about Virginia dirt, it's kind of this reddish clay dirt. I don't know if there's any way if there was any dirt on the shovel that would be connected with okay, this, I mean, if the dirt is everywhere in Idaho and Wisconsin or Washington, forget about it,
Right.
It just means that the shovel is used to dig dirt. But if there was a specific type of dirt or something found on there that says, oh, wait, this is right over in there, that area where he turned his phone off. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I found it to be extremely concerning. When I was, what do you call it? Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. I was looking at something over here. I'm trying to find another article that I had that had a little bit more information on some of the other stuff, including some of the things that happened at Northampton University and at WSU that was relative to Bryan Kohberger's past history.
Part of me still doesn't. I mean, I know the burden of proof is on the prosecution, but it just seems like if this was me and I was in prison and I had an alibi, I could say where I was. I would say where I was when I was. I'm not sure I understand the strategic move on waiting this long, for one, and then in their revised alibi, not saying. It still seems kind of vague, right? I mean, it's not giving at this time I was at this spot right here. and I've got this selfie on my phone to prove it. I mean,
Right.
You know,
Yeah. I mean,
especially with his knowledge of this kind of thing, it's like it seems like he
Right.
would know what.
Well,
It
I
almost
mean-
seems like he knows the whole process, but is he getting off on like the stringing him along to like instead like somebody that is completely innocent and has this background and this knowledge and this education, they'd be saying, look, I swear to you, I didn't do it, and I can help you find the person who did. But you know, I just don't feel like it's that way. I feel like it's like we're going to look at 1800 case law to try and get out of this one, you know. And
yeah, no, I agree. And I think his first initial alibi specifically stated that Bryan Kohberger isn't saying that he was at a specific place at a specific time, just that he was out driving around in the early morning hours by himself. And the only thing they added to it was that at some point he was at the Wawa Park. I mean, they don't even say that. They just say that he was Southwest, blah, blah, blah. Then they put Wawa Park. Then they put in there that he often went out there to night, stargaze and all this other stuff, right? The problem with that, though, is it says that he did those things in November. It doesn't say he did those things the night of the incident. So
it didn't say something about the early morning hours. That's the way it's phrased, which what is that? That could be 7 a.m. That could be 8 a.m. That could be 9 a.m. You know, why not put a time on there that is, you know, especially if you can put like 4:15 a.m. That's where I was, you know, heck, 4:30 a.m. That's where I was. Anything that would prove that's like, there's no way I could be doing these crimes between 4 and 4:30 because I was over there. Seems like it should be simpler than it is. I mean, maybe it's possible to, you know, it's like, oh, what luck or what bad luck to like, I didn't take any selfies. I had my phone off. I don't have any way of proving where I was. Damn, you know, this sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super weird, man. To be honest with you, to me, it just all screams guilt. It really does. Like,
yeah, and this is screaming guilt, and we don't even know everything, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's what seems to me. I always imagine this whole thing is like puzzle pieces. We have so far less pieces than law enforcement has, and the FBI has, and they're going for the death penalty. So it's like, if you got more pieces than me, and you're competent enough to go for the death penalty, and my few pieces here, I've got kind of part of the border, you know, that looks like the clouds. There's that's a picture of the sky. You know, we're starting to put our puzzle pieces together and come up with conclusions. And then when we do that, we get hated for some reason. It's like, wow, I'm just calling them like I see them, right? What's really wrong with that? You know?
Yeah.
Change my mind. What's that guy? Change my mind.
Steven Crowder. Yeah. I've asked people to do that. Nobody's been able to. It's unfortunate. Oh, here it is. This is what I was looking for earlier. So this is Jeremy Saba. This is off of the I Am Tribune. It says a neighbor 2 houses from Kohberger's child home was part of the group that introduced Kohberger to heroin. Bayless Casey and Thomas Arndt said Saba and Kohberger can be seen together in a photo that Saba posted on Facebook in August 2016. 4 months after Saba was arrested and charged with DUI, misdemeanor possession of drug paraphernalia, he later pled guilty to both charges according to Pennsylvania court records. I didn't like him personally because he got my boy into heroin, Bayless said by the phone, mentioning his falling out with Kohberger for several years over his drug use. I think drugs goofed him up pretty bad. He was having a hard time. He'd tell me, I'm clean now. I'm totally clean. And he'd have bleeding track marks on his arms. Kohberger had no known criminal record before he was charged with 4 counts of murder and 1 count of felony burglary on November 13th, Moscow, Idaho, homicides. Saba was arrested again in 2018 for misdemeanor possession of controlled substance, pled guilty and received a year probation in March 2021. Saba died of an accidental overdose. So 2 of Kohberger's friends who were in there were passed similar ways. Pretty crazy, man. Crazy stuff.
Is that what you said that you said that he made some comment about like you wouldn't find me touching that stuff, or wouldn't be getting close to it. Was That was when? Because I mean, is that a statement that's said after losing 2 friends to heroin?
I think it was
Or
after
is
losing
that
one.
okay?
I think it was in between, because one was in 2021, one was in 2018. I'm trying to find that part because I think it's in this article. I went through this all day today, and I was like, man, this is insane. So this right here says it's several years after they last spoke, Bayless said that he and Kohberger reconnected. Bayless said that the two would exchange Facebook messages. Kohberger would call him to talk every week or so. Kohberger told him he no longer used drugs when the subject came up. At some point, he said, "Don't ever bring it up again. We're past that," Bayless told the statement. In May 2018, Kohberger told Bayless in messages on Facebook that he hadn't used drugs in 2 years, according to screenshots that Bayless shared with the New York Times. So he said this in 2018, but he's claiming he hadn't done it since, in 2 years. However, and this is why.
Can you scroll that up a little bit? It's being blocked a little bit by.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I have all the articles. One was upset that she left in the room. One said that he followed. Send me the articles, please. So this says here again, Kohberger call him once a week or every other week or so. Kohberger told him he no longer used drugs when the subject would come up. At some point, he said, "Don't ever bring it up again. We're past that." Now, if this was in 2018 and he was under some sort of probe for the death of Ashley Fugel, and there was heroin involved, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't want his friends bringing that up too, right?
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's interesting with my uncle. My stepdad told me that at my uncle's funeral, there was a guy there that we suspected was providing, heroin to my uncle. And my stepdad was kind of approached him just to say hello and talk to him a little bit. And that guy, apparently, as the story goes, he pretty quickly said, "I don't need to say anything without a lawyer." Very defensive. I don't know if you can take like that is also being like, don't ever bring it up again. We're past that, in the same vein.
Right. Yeah. And he continues, he says, "I only used when I was in a deep suicidal state," the Times reported. Kohberger wrote to Bayless, "I have since really learned a lot. Not a person alive could convince me to use it." So a year before that, so he said, a year before that, Casey Ernst says she ran into Kohberger at a wedding, and that was the last time she saw him. He appeared to have pulled his life together. She said that he was in college and working as a security officer at the Pleasant Valley School District. Now, we know that there was an issue there. We've seen the resignation letter, and in that resignation letter, it puts on there that he's aware that if he does not resign, that a termination, he would be in front of a termination, board to terminate his position. And I went back and I looked at the actual Pleasant Valley High School meeting logs and the minutes. And there was a group of people who were leaving, or their positions were no longer being available. They were being cut. They were not being replaced. Bryan Kohberger, he had his position along with 2 principals that were leaving the district to go for other jobs, not leaving the district because of pay cuts. Their positions were going to be refilled. Those 3 were subject under another portion of those meetings. And so if you're doing away with a position, you don't fill it. So it's in my opinion alone. And I think that something probably happened there as well. What do you think?
Yeah. And this would be kind of another one in a long list of things like this, right? I mean, he lost the WSU teaching assistant position. And then didn't they officially inform him on the day that he was driving with his dad across the country? Isn't that what I thought I saw? Maybe it was just prior to it.
I think he was already there, because I think he got there around like the 18th or the 16th, something like that. I think it was December 19th is when they informed him that they were going to be terminating him as a teacher's assistant. And then December 30th or something, like right after he got arrested, they sent them like, "You can't come back on the property," type of thing.
Right.
And so this one right here says Kohberger attended Northampton Community College in Eastern Pennsylvania and graduated in 2018 with a major in psychology. According to the school person, the school is unwilling to say anything else about Kohberger, directing all questions to law enforcement. That's interesting. Kohberger went on to earn his bachelor's degree in 2020, his master's degree in 2022 from DeSales. According to a statement the university released the day he was arrested, the university about an hour south of home. Kohberger's parents moved, and he continued to live while in college. Public records indicated DeSales faculty are not accepting interview requests about Kohberger. The university spokesperson told the statement by email the university will cooperate with law enforcement's investigation however it can, she said, but declined to offer specifics. Now, I read somewhere here was an online program for the most part. Right here it is. So Kohberger majored psychology for his bachelor's. Boyce Julian, chair of the DeSales psychology department, told the Philadelphia Inquirer that the day of his arrest, he received a master's through the university's online criminal justice program. Michelle Blogger, professor at DeSales criminal justice department, told the Daily Mail last month. So his time at DeSales University was online for the most part. I think there was some courses that he ended up going in the latter part of his collegiate career, but the early part was online. And this was during COVID and stuff, so it makes sense.
Now, do you think when it's saying it's online, do you think that's like interacting through Zoom calls at all, or is it entirely, you just emailing your assignments, you're getting them emailed back? Because I mean, even on a Zoom call, I mean, you can kind of get a sense. Because I'm really curious to hear what Catherine Ramsland, what experience she had interacting with him, what she thinks of, of him. If knowing as much as she knows about, serial killers and things, what would she say? If there, were there any red flags or anything that made her stop and, things that make you go,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure there was some red flags in a few places. Let's see. So this is this next part is with Jordan Sherlinek. He's the owner of the Seven Siren Brewing Company. All he had to say was that at one point somebody came in with the name Brian that looked like Bryan Kohberger at the bar. He told them that he'd been rude or whatever, and they basically kicked him out. He said he seemed dumbfounded, finished his beer, and never saw him again. So you take that for what it is. Let's see, but
there was that other bar that had a photo of him to like alert anybody that if he came in, right? I can't remember the name of that bar.
Yeah, I think it's this.
That was
one.
Early on. We were looking for like on their website to see if there was any photos of him in the background.
Yeah, it was this one. It was this one
from anything we could find on their website, or
yeah,
it's that one. Okay, what's the name of the place? Did it say?
Yeah, it's called the Seven. Where was it? Seven Sirens Brewing Company.
Okay.
So this continues to say Kohberger showed similar behaviors while attending WSU's PhD program. Fellow graduate classmates told the statement last month. So there's been interviews, and now we know who a lot of these sources are about the disturbing behaviors of Bryan Kohberger. It's a lot of his classmates, right? So they're talking to the news. It's obvious, right? So this isn't coming from I don't know, somebody random. This is coming from his class.
It's interesting too, because usually the news right.
What's that?
That was weird. I think it was a little. I could hear you talking, but your lips weren't moving. I don't know if it's like buffering or something. Yeah, just a little. That was weird. But oftentimes, like on the news, you hear people interviewed, like they were neighbors. Like, oh, he seemed like a nice guy. I can't imagine he would ever do that. It just seems like there's a whole lot of people that are saying similar things or describing his character very similarly. So it's interesting.
Yeah,
I guess are they all in on the frame job? Maybe.
Apparently, this all started because Bryan Kohberger saw a LGBTQ poster on the wall, and he made a face. And that face, somebody saw that face, and they decided they're going to frame him for murders and kick him out of school. That's literally what people have told me is the reason why this happened at the school is because he had anti-LGBTQ thoughts or opinions. And so the school wanted to get rid of him. So they were forcing him out at the same time that the police department was framing him for quadruple homicide. I mean, he's got to be the unluckiest dude in the world. I mean, to have so many people hate him like that. Like, that's honestly and truly what I have gotten from multiple people who believe that he is innocent, that he saw some sort of poster and made a face. And because he made the face, that the school was like, we got to get rid of this guy. We got to get rid of it. So, yeah, I don't think so. This thing says here, it says, during the fall semester, he was said to be increasingly condescending towards women in class discussions. In December, Kohberger was fired from the teaching position for failing to meet norms of professional behavior. According to the New York Times, he had repeat altercations with criminal justice professor whom he worked with, which is John Snyder. Did not improve upon his conduct and performance, and also exhibited concerning behavior around female students, including allegations he followed one to her car. So following is one of the allegations, right? Now, they've talked to these students. The witnesses are the students, or the sources are the students. So interesting stuff. WSU facility at their end of year meeting chose to pull Kohberger from the role, eliminating his funds for the PhD program. According to the Times, the university sent him his termination letter on December 19th, 3 days after the end of finals for the fall semester. Kohberger's first term at WSU. I mean, that was the first time he'd been there, already having problems and issues. I mean, red flags up the wazoo. Know what I mean?
I'm getting a spinning wheel on you, Daniel. Is it just me?
It might be you, my man. I think you're lagging a little bit. Yeah, I can hear, like, you sound like you're underwater. You might need to pull out and then come back in. Something. Yeah. I think you're having some issues there. You might want to pull out and then come back in. And so, yeah, I mean, all this stuff here just doesn't really, like I said, it doesn't say that he did anything. It's just, these are red flags, right? And then you also have the fact that he has writings that are out there where he talks about his struggle with remorse and feelings and emotions and things like that. You know, those are all characteristics that you expect to find in somebody that would have committed some crime like this. You're expecting to find those characteristics of loss of emotion, loss of sense of remorse. You're going to find situations where there's allegations of following, stalking, or disturbing behaviors. And those things are present in this case. Those things are well present here. I mean, to me, it appeared that, you know, everything that Bryan Kohberger was working for to try to be in law enforcement was falling down the tubes. You know, he applied to be an intern police officer at Pullman. We know that he applied in the spring because we saw the email that he had to the chief of police from Pullman, and then we know he applied in the fall because it's in the probable cause affidavit. So if he applied in the fall, it means he probably didn't get the job in the spring. So these type of allegations, this type of issue, him getting fired as a teacher's assistant, well, that's not really, you know, prime police officer material, right? I don't think you're going to pass a background test with that. So probably saw his life coming to an end. Everything he'd worked so hard for changed his life around. He was addicted to drugs, and you know, he abused them, and offer was going away. I think that played a huge role in this case. Are you still there, Jeff? No, I don't hear him. He looks frozen. There he goes. He's off now. Let's see. Despite the nation's ongoing attention in the case, including the intense focus on the Poconos, Zowak said that she wants to see the judicial process play out properly. Perhaps then, she said, those impacted can begin to heal on both sides of the country. True story. So if you guys have any questions, I'll go through them, put some stars in front of them. That way I can see them and I can answer them. Or you can always do the colored ones, the super chat, they come in colored, green, blue, yellow, whatever. Those catch my attention really quick. I'll answer those comments. Those are super chats, y'all. So let me know. Hopefully it's not me that was having the issue. But, you know, something to go back into and something to think about when it comes to this case. Try to remember, a lot of people have forgotten some of the things that were said and some of the um, I want to say accusations, I guess, of the behavior that was displayed by Kohberger before. Completely crazy. Let's see. Jen says 821 King Road, 1 hour, 1 minute. PD traffic stop. 923. First altercation. 10-3 professionalism meeting. 1021 failed email. 11-2 placed on improvement plan. And what if he did all this to stick it to society and Ellie? That's one thing that I thought, played a role. When you look at the probable cause affidavit, specifically, it says that he wrote an essay. And in that essay, it said that he wanted to assist rural law enforcement agencies with better to collect and analyze technological data and forensic information, meaning basically, he was going to show these backwoods rural cops that don't know jack about technology how tech works. It's the way I read it when I read that. So kind of weird. Let's see. I'm not sure if Jeff's going to make his way back in or not. I'm probably going to call this here in a couple of minutes. Heather says, if your child were ever arrested for homicide, would you demand the state to prove guilt, or would you just accept the death sentence? Obviously, I would demand the state to prove the guilt. All right. I don't think that it's wrong. I think that every case, regardless if it was a child, if it was your child, if it was your neighbor, if it was a stranger, the demand should be on the state to prove guilt. It should never be the other way around. In this situation here, I'm not a jury. I'm not a juror. I'm not a judge. I'm not an attorney. So I don't have to fall under the guy's, I think he's innocent until proven guilty. I can have the opinion of, I think this guy did this crime. Now, I'm not going to say 100% guilty, because there's always something that can come out. And until we go there and until we see everything, I want to see everything that they have against them. Now, I'm pretty close to there, in the 90s, somewhere around there, that I think he did this. But I'm open to the fact that there could be something. And I know a lot of people think that, I would, don't change my mind or whatever. I thought Richard Allen was the sole guy by himself and didn't, it was him. And then after his defense team came out, I was like, well, hold on. Let's take a step back and look at this. I still think that Elvis Fields had some pretty weird statements. And there were some of the statements may have matched what was at the crime scene. And, those type of things I don't find coincidental. Now, I'm not saying that I don't think Richard Allen wasn't involved. I do think he was. I think he is the bridge guy. But I think there's more to this story. I don't think it's just him anymore by himself. So, I can change my mind before. And I'm open to seeing something. I just haven't seen anything. But yeah, no, I would demand to prove beyond reasonable doubt. I think that should be the standard for anybody, regardless if it's family or not. And like I said, I'll be honest, and I've said this multiple times as well. Bryan Kohberger not speaking or saying anything or demanding a lawyer is not something that I would have told my own child, wife, family member, brother, anybody. If they found themselves in trouble with the law, don't say anything. Whether you're innocent or guilty, don't say anything. Get a lawyer and make sure that a lawyer is present anytime you talk to them. And that's pretty solid advice, to be honest with you. Kohberger, being in criminal justice, probably is aware of that as well. So I don't necessarily see him asking for a lawyer or those type of things as an indication of guilt. In fact, I've never said that before. I've never said that him lawyering up early on and asking for a lawyer was an indication of guilt. I knew based on his studies and knowledge that it was probably the best decision for him, and he made the right one, and whether he's guilty or innocent. That would have been the advice that if you would have given me, and you, the viewer, would have called me and said, hey, if I get in trouble with law, innocent or not, should I talk to cops? So I'd say not without an attorney present. Not because of anything other than the fact that you don't want to say something out of emotion or say something out of nervousness in the moment that might implicate you into something that may not be true. People hang on every single word that people say. And so, and don't take into consideration nerves, emotion, those type of things. And so it's probably in your best interest, regardless of anything. So I've never taken that as a sign of guilt. I did think that the whole standing still stuff, or standing silent during his plea, that was different. That's a different subject. Now, I understand why. Apparently, they're claiming that they were at the time, and it seems like they're still trying to do, is argue the grand jury indictment. They were protesting it, which is why they didn't say anything, according to what I've read. I don't know how true that is. It could have been something somebody made up. I don't know. It sounds like it's possible, plausible. So, that part, if that is true, if that's what the intent behind that was, then yeah, I mean, it's probably not as nefarious as first indicated. But the fact that he doesn't want to give his alibi and all that other stuff, now that's a way different story too. Way different story. Let's see. I don't know if anybody else put some stars on here. Go through these. I don't see any. I have put Jeff's computer issues. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Neat pics through email. Okay. I'll go check that out in a sec. So you don't think that you have a duty to not feed bias? No, I don't think I have a duty to not feed bias. I have a duty of my own opinion and to be free of my own opinion. I'm not somebody that is, my audience isn't one of the 12 jurors that's going to be up there. I would hope that whoever is, in the jury against Bryan Kohberger, isn't in my live chat, isn't in Truth and Transparency's live chat, isn't in Swamp Bros or AR Hayes or Gray Hughes or anybody else. I would really hope that that's not the case. So, at the end of the day, what I have is a right to my own opinion and to explain that opinion. But no, I mean, everybody has a right to their opinion as well. I don't think I've ever told anybody not to have an opinion or watch anybody or follow anything. I've only just asked that when you listen to what we're saying here on the show, is just keep an open mind about what we're saying. Let's see. Ember asked a perfect question. Let me see what she asked. I don't see it. Not seeing it. And as far as feeding biasness, I don't feel the need to not feed biasness. Like, let me reread this again, because maybe I read this wrong. Do you have a duty to not feed bias? I don't feel like I have a duty to not feel bias. I feel like I'm not biased. I just follow the evidence that there is. And like I said it before, if we heard somebody yelling, in that audio 50 feet away, and that person yelling was saying things like, I effing hate you, can't believe you did this, yada, 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 maybe yelled out a name of one of the victims, and, you found their DNA in that house, or, you saw their car outside, I would be just as hard on them as I am on Bryan Kohberger in this case, as the person that committed this crime. Like, no doubt. Pretty quickly. So it's not because of any of those things. It's just, all the evidence points in one direction. Now, if there's evidence that points somewhere else, yeah, I'll jump to that and say, hey, look, there's this. This says something different. Yeah, stay silent. Don't talk to cops. It's true. I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to lie. You don't want to say anything. Let's see. Not seeing much on here. It backfired. Well, you guys are awesome in the chat. I want to say thank you to everybody tuning in. If you haven't hit that like button, please hit that like button. Hit the subscribe, and only everything else, you do on every other podcast. Heather says it's only different if he's using an alibi defense strategy. If he plans to prove his innocence using a defense strategy, he does not have to give an alibi. Yeah, obvious. Yeah, 100%. I agree. I think that is 100% true. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. Jen says, Ashley Fugel wasn't his girlfriend. The article he was reading was not backed by facts. I think what it said was that there's been people that have reported that they were, and it even stated that they haven't found any evidence that they were dating. In fact, everything that they found on his social media or her social media showed that she was interested in the same-sex relationships, not necessarily with the opposite, and including the picture as well. Let me see if I can pull it up. The picture that they had, which is why I didn't. They said that you can see what somebody kind of looks like Bryan Kohberger. Let me get this up real quick. Take this off. It's this guy right here, and I'm sure some people have seen this image. But she puts John, Sean, Christian, Kaylee, me. So she doesn't put Bryan unless, well, Bryan's middle name is Christopher. That's just Christian. So I don't know. I don't think it's anything. So I don't even think that's him, but I could be wrong. And there is a hand on her. That hand would be the middle person who is suspected to have been Kohberger. No idea. Do you think this was his first human killed? Did he kill Buddy the dog? I don't know on either one of those, to be honest with you. Part of me says this wasn't because of the mistakes that weren't made. You know, the DNA not left behind on the bodies. I mean, he left the sheath and stuff, but you know, the body's not having his DNA, his ability to elude majority of the investigation tells me he's experienced, but then also those mistakes that he made, which a lot of the folks that defend him bring up a lot, which is confusing. They're like, if Bryan Kohberger's smart, he wouldn't have driven his own car, left the sheath, took his phone with him, and all these other dumb mistakes that he made. And I'm like, well, the thing is, those things were made. Those things were done. There was a sheath recovered. There was a vehicle matching his outside. He did take his phone with him that night. You know, those dumb mistakes were made. So why are you surprised when the person got caught? I mean, I would think that a result of somebody making multiple dumb mistakes is their apprehension, in my opinion. Let's see. I don't think I said he went to Idaho. I said he went to WSU. But when I was talking about him going to Idaho is when he's going to the house, not to the school. What year was Wawa Park open? I don't know, man. I honestly don't know when Wawa Park was opened. Mr. Beer comes in with 5 gifted Drunk Turkey Show memberships. Thank you so much, Mr. Beer. We appreciate you. Let's see. Not seeing much else. Miss 101 says, can we have the evidence tester back on the show of how polycarbonate taillight breaks when frozen? Maybe talk about how freezing affects bleeding and bruising for John O'Keefe. Yeah, I can ask Steve if he wants to come back out here and we can talk about those things. Those are pretty interesting things. I still haven't really followed the Karen Reed case. I need to catch up. Again, guys, I'm very new to true crime. This Karen Reed was going to be the first trial I'd ever watched from start to finish, and I got like 3 days into it, and I was like, man, this is a lot. So I'll be doing it in the Bryan Kohberger case, obviously, but you know, for a case that I hadn't followed or anything like that, it was a lot. It was a lot, especially with so many other things that I have to do in daily life. That's probably one of the reasons why the jury, they get sequestered. They don't see or hear anything, and don't get to go to work and stuff, so they can just focus on that. Let's see. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, 100%. I don't think everybody that's here tonight. Thank everybody that is tuning in. Thank you, Jeff, for coming on. I know he's having some technical difficulties at the end there. But that's going to be a show, guys. I appreciate everybody. I'll be back on probably Wednesday. I think I have something scheduled. If not, I'll let you know in the community post. Also, guys, for the members, check out the community post a little bit later. I think tomorrow I'm going to drop a Discord link for our members in the member chat. That way you can come on in and we can get that going. And speak of Jeff, he's back in. What's going on, Jeff? You're here for the end.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me? I didn't even check my audio settings. It's okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
You're good.
Man, I don't know what happened. My Mac was acting like that feeling when you feel like, oh man, it might be time for a new Mac.
Dude, same thing happened to me when I was talking about Snowden and Epstein Island and a bunch of other stuff. When we do our conspiracy shows, all of a sudden my stuff starts acting up too. We blame it on the feds. Yeah, so but yeah, man, I want to thank you for coming on. You got any final words for everybody? We're probably just going to call it here in the next couple minutes. What are your final words and stuff?
Just thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. You know, I find myself saying in chats many times, like, if you want to know what I think, just go listen to Daniel. I think your theories are on common sense. You know, I have nothing to argue with against you. Like, oh no, come on, that's crazy. You know, just it's a good feeling every now and then to have that kind of conversation. You know, the other conversations are fun too. I mean, it's mental gymnastics. It's a test of patience sometimes. And I don't doesn't really bother me to talk with people that have different opinions. Everybody's got a right to their opinion, and you know,
I agree.
And when I tell you what, when they have an opinion and they start getting really upset with me and are going almost as far as saying something about my mother as a result, it's like, you're not getting any closer to convincing me or changing my mind. Really, you're doing exactly the opposite. And I imagine they just write you off and they don't care really. So that's why they've gone that far. But, but you know, believe in your ability to convince somebody. Stay calm and give it time. Doesn't happen today, try tomorrow. Doesn't happen the next day. If not that, just realize that, like, we're all different people. We got different opinions, and you know, who wants to go to the same salad bar at this restaurant, this restaurant? You know, there's a variety for a reason.
Oh, that'd be my wife though, man. You can she'll go to the same salad bar. That's the exact thing that she goes for in some places, just for the salad bar. I think there's a place called the Red Barn or something like that here in San Antonio. Yeah, and she's like, she goes just for the salad bar. I mean, it's not a bad salad bar, don't get me wrong. But I like the place. It's just not my go-to.
We used to have Red Barn when I was growing up, but I think it's a different place. Red Barn was like a hamburger joint. It was like a McDonald's knockoff, I think was what it was.
Oh no. This one I think is more like somewhat of a barbecue place mixed with backyard food, you know, burgers, stuff like that too. So it was it's good, don't get me wrong, but like I don't want to go to a place just for their salad bar. You know what I mean?
You know, we went all the way to Texas. I was on a video shoot, and first time I'd ever been to Texas wasn't that long last year, I guess. I went to my first Texas Roadhouse, which makes no sense because we have a Texas Roadhouse like, you know, 20 minutes from my house here. Had to went all the way to Texas to go to a Texas Roadhouse.
Damn.
But we did see what's that place with the gas station that's got like 700 pumps? Buc-ee's, yeah. All you had to do is say gas station, and you were talking about. We're supposed to be getting one up in this area soon. People have been on. I've got this like neighborhood app, and people putting comments all over it. There's a lot of people are against the idea, but I think it'd be kind of cool, you know. Yeah,
it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting, but. Well, guys, I appreciate everybody's here. Angel D says Daniel's like Texas Roadhouse blasphemy. Texas Roadhouse is my wife likes Texas Roadhouse. I'm not a fan. I'll be honest.
Wants to say goodbye to everybody too. Say, come here.
See you later. If you're in the San Antonio area, I'll give you a place. It's up there in price sometimes. You got to go on the lunchtime. If you go during the lunchtime, it's not too bad. But it's a place called Rosario's. It's a Brazilian steakhouse. Super fancy. it's so dang fancy. It's literally parked next to the Ferrari dealership. So, or it's in the same parking lot. So it's a fancier place. Don't go and cut off shirts. I did that one time. But it's nicer, but man, the food there is freaking amazing. You get a little card and you flip it, and it's red and green. When you have green, they come bring you the meat to you, and it's like super hot. So it's like it's not like you're getting like a cold piece of meat or anything like that. And the cuts are amazing. It's me and the wife still have to go because I promised her I'd take her for I think she had some she got a promotion type of thing at her job, so we're supposed to be going for that, and we haven't gone yet. So I'm getting myself hungry and ready for that.
It sounds great. It sounds great.
Yeah, it really is. Check it out if you're ever in San Antonio.
What is it called again? Lazari?
Brazzarios, like BRAZ Brazzarios.
So it looks a little like Brazier. I'll remember it that way.
Yeah. It's a Brazilian steakhouse.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's it's really, really good. My favorite one in San Antonio. I've been to a few, and that one is my favorite one. It's Brasayo. Man, I can't even pronounce it. Look, this is going to be a free publicity to you guys there. Brasayo Brazilian Steakhouse. So go check it out. Their shrimp is amazing. Like everything is amazing.
Because you did that tomorrow night, the waiters are gonna quit. They're gonna, I can't handle this. There's too many people here. This is you said it would never get this busy.
Right? No, this place can get pretty bumping. I'll tell you what. But yeah, they're in San Antonio, Plano, and Irving. So if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you probably can go check that out as well. Well, Jeff, I appreciate you coming. Make sure, guys, you go like and subscribe on his channel. Get him up there. With that being said, guys, we're done. I hope I ended the stream making everybody hungry. With that being said, see y'all later, guys.